Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video, we're going to do an interesting little comparison. So we're going to be looking at more old Disney stuff. Or slightly older Disney stuff. So this is the comparison of That Darn Cat. So I could only get them in the set because the new one in 1997 did not do well. In fact, that is like 4.7 on IMDb. So yeah, it's not that it's bad. It's they didn't do very well with it. It has a great car chase at the end, though. It's good enough to get just because the car chase at the end is kind of hilarious. So, and yeah, it's definitely interesting. The old version is different. I mean, it's classic Disney. It came out while Disney was still alive, and by that I mean chain smoking Walt Disney. This came out in 1965. It actually has a 6.8 on IMDb. So and these are both based on a book that is no longer in print. Otherwise, I'd review it. Called, I believe, some sort of, let's see, what was it called? If I can find. Undercover Cat was the title of the book. It was by Mildred Gordon and I believe her husband, Gordon. Yes, that's his real name. But the book's no longer in print. And in the book, the cat's name is Damn Cat, as opposed to Darn Cat, which is what DC stands for. That is what the cat is typically called, Darn Cat. But he's called DC in both these iterations of this. So the original, again, came out in 1965, so this is old Disney, yes, you can tell. Stars Hayley Mills in her last Disney film and her last decent film until she did something cheesy, which I think was Parent Trap 2. Yeah, because of her marriage and attempts at, I think, some sort of action star, her career, tanked after this. So, the person she plays opposite is Dean Jones. This was his first Disney comedy feature, and he went on to do a bunch of stuff for Disney, including, I believe, what on earth was the other weird film that he did? The Ugly Dachshund, The Shaggy Dog, The Absent-Minded Professor. So he did a bunch of those where he played a wholesome family man, which apparently he wasn't, because as he discovered, wealth and fame and doesn't buy happiness. So he ended up becoming an adulterer and an alcoholic before realizing, yeah, he needs to fix things. So the other actors include Dorothy Provine, who plays the older sister of Hayley Mills' character, Patty. She was a mainstay until 1970, when she got married and just kind of disappeared. She got married, she got out of Hollywood and retired. And then you had a couple of other older actors who were very common back then. So, but yeah, the main characters are Hayley Mills playing Patty Randall, and Dean Jones playing the FBI agent Zeke Kelso. Dorothy Provine, who is playing Ingrid Randall. And then you have Roddy McDowall, who plays Gregory Benson, who's essentially the man who's hitting on Ingrid. He's their neighbor. And that's a cat. Please ignore the cat banging at the door. Who wants to date Ingrid, and he coaxing her using a carpool that certainly goes down to just the two of them when he gets a sports car, is a hunter, has pigeons, and is very much hitting on her, and she really just wants him for a ride. And he's one of those guys, is your upsetting mother. That's one of his things. He's a little bit crazy. And then you have, where on earth is the other? You have the nosy neighbor, which is played by Elsa Lanchester, who's a common, I believe, very active at this time. She plays as Miss McDougal, and then her husband. She's the type of neighbor you see in a lot of these films, who's, you know, spying outside the window. Let's see. Who else? The other main character in here who plays the... It's not showing him, not popping up immediately. Do the rest of the thing. He plays... You have a character who plays essentially the guy who has a crush on Patty. So, click top build cast here. And see if I can find him, because he's not popping up on the top. Here we go. Tom Lowell is the name of the actor. In fact, I'm going to quickly pull him up here. So, yeah, he's actually still alive. But he plays the little surfer dude in this who has a crush on Patty, and they're constantly going out. So, the 1997 version, which again gets horrible reviews just because it focuses more on Christina Ricci, who plays the title character of Patty, and they don't give her a last name, and Dougie Doug, who plays Agent Zeke Kelso. And then Dean Jones shows up again. He plays a wealthy man in this version, because again they changed around. And then you have Michael McKean pops up in here as Patty's father, and then Bess Armstrong, who plays the mother. So, excuse me there. And you have Morgan Cavanaugh, who's more known for the League of Their Own, which I am covering later this year. So, and a few other people here. But this one, again, didn't do very well. So let's get on to the comparison. Okay, so the original is very interesting. Both of them what they have in common is they're both about a cat who basically discovers a kidnapped woman. So essentially he's prowling around town, and he follows this guy into where they're hiding out, and the motive is very different in both of these films. So the woman who has been kidnapped gets a hold of him, basically takes off his collar, tries to write help on the back of her watch and puts that around her neck. She doesn't quite get there, but she does get the watch around his neck and send off the cat. And so the owner finds out, Patty, I think she's younger in the second film. She's very much a high school student in the 1997 film. In the 65 film here, back to the year here. Yeah, 65. You don't really know. She's obviously a teenager, but you're not quite sure the ages. And her parents are off in Europe. So I'm assuming it's summer, because she's not in school. So, again, so they're both teenagers. The cat, they've realized, okay, this is possibly the watch of this kidnapped woman. So they go to the FBI. And they're hooked up with this agent, Kelso. And at first, they try to trail the cat with FBI agents, and that goes as well as you might think, with a bunch of FBI agents trying to follow around a cat. It's not a good idea. They get in trouble. Then they individually go after the cat. And again, there's kind of various different chaos. You see some of the relationships. And at the end, again, they get the bad guys. They rescue the woman. That is the extent of the similarities with this, because both films go off in completely different directions. So it is very interesting. So the 1965 version, there's a couple different things going on here. One, Patty Randall's parents are not there. Again, they're in Europe. She has her older sister, who is an adult, has a job, is staying with her. I don't know whether I'm assuming she still lives at home, which would have been common in 1965 before she got married. Though Patty, her sister, played by Hayley Mills, comments on it that she basically calls her an old maid. She calls her sister an old maid and tries to convince her that, no, the guy giving you a ride wants to introduce you to his mother, even though he lives next door. And he's hitting on you. And she's like, no, he's giving me a ride to work. He happens to be near my work. He's pretentious. He's extremely pretentious. He's very hilarious. In fact, he chases the cat with a shotgun because DC sneaks into his, I think, his porch or something and steals a duck that he had hunted. And he complains, like, I hid in a hide for like a day or so and shot this duck, which sounds really, really stupid. But I know nothing about hunting. And, yeah. And he gets mad. He's running around, and he has pigeons. So he's seen a couple of times with a shotgun, which is hilarious. But again, he's obnoxious, stuck up, and extremely pretentious. So he's hitting on Ingrid. And then you have another character. You have two male characters you do not see in the modern film. You have the counterpart to Patty's, who's a childhood friend. He's her boyfriend, but it's commented in the beginning by the nosy neighbor's husband, that he's been going in and out of the house since he could wave bye-bye. So they've known each other since they were toddlers. So he is in there, and he's obsessed with surfing, and they constantly go to the same movie over and over again at the drive-thru, and they go surfing. So we're assuming this is in California because, again, it's Disney, and this is shot on the Disney backlot or wherever they did outdoor filming, mostly on the backlot. In fact, the car the pretentious guy drives apparently belonged to Walt, and he was loaning it to the film for like $100 a day. Again, this is 1965. So, and apparently his family still owns the car, as opposed to, you know, the business. Moving on. So, and you have him who starts spying on things because all of a sudden, our main character, Patty, is interacting with Zeke, who's, you know, trying to follow around her cat. So, and at one point in time, of course, he gives up, and Patty goes to the, I believe it's the bank. So here's the other major difference. In the original, the woman who was kidnapped was a teller at a bank and was kidnapped as part of a bank robbery. In the modern one, the woman was kidnapped because she is the housekeeper of a wealthy family. So that's where Jones comes in, who is the detective in the original, is in the modern one. Him and his wife are the employers of this woman in the modern one. So she was kidnapped. The other major difference that you see is you know who the kidnappers are in the beginning, in the original version. You see them, they talk about killing her. Essentially, they have untied her. You see that they've stolen money. They have her cooking in the kitchen. That's how she gets a hold of the cat, because the cat, DC, follows them because he's after salmon. One of the two bank robbers has bought salmon in the local store. And of course, he's a cat following the fish. He was peeking into the butcher shop. And so that's how he interacts with her. Can't remember who he follows. He's just wandering around. There's a crazy old lady living downstairs in the modern one. So moving on, we're trying to keep with the older one. So you know who the kidnappers are. And so they're trying to follow around this cat. Patty goes to the owner of the bank and convinces and talks to him about the watch, shows him the picture of the watch. He's like, yeah, that's hers. And has her call the detective's office to connect the two, because he's already been kind of taken off the case. And it's like, this is a dead end. So Zeke is put back on the case. His boss gets involved. And they do eventually trail the cat to the kidnapper's hideout right before they're going to kill her. And he has a transmitter around his neck. So the FBI agent, who's Zilko, and I'm like, remember his name here, Zeke Kelso. One of the things that stays the same between the two is the name of the two main characters. He hears it. He finds them. They're able to stop the killers and rescue the woman. And it's all contained inside the apartment where they've been holding her captive. And she's able to get through. And then it ends with Ingrid starting to possibly date our FBI agent, and he's now taking her to work, so I'm assuming it's local. And yeah, her neighbor being pushed off and kind of being pissed off. It's like, yeah, at one point in time, the FBI agent was hiding in the closet because they don't want anybody to know he's there. And essentially, the neighbor accuses her of being a slut, and she is pissed off. And it's like, yeah, I want nothing to do with you. Go away. And then, of course, you have the boyfriend, Canoe is his name, who actually, the final thing, follows Patty, who's following Zeke, because she gets involved in the final scuffle. Her boyfriend, Canoe, does not. He gets stuck, trapped underneath somebody's garage door because he's backed up against it, hiding from, so either the FBI agent or Patty knows he's following them. He's also frequently smoking a pipe, so as a teenager. So obviously that would not fly in modern days. So you would not see a teenage boy smoking a pipe, but he gets caught up in this garage door and shows up at the end, and Patty takes him back because she realizes he was jealous of the FBI agent and is like not thinking of food or surfing. So it was commented that some of the comments about boring surfing movies was a reference to Walt Disney disliking them, particularly with his star Annette Funicello, because she was in a bunch of those. So one of these days I'll look into that. They had an interesting relationship before I believe she got Parkinson's and he died, obviously. So it's a very interesting movie. You very much focus on the cat, who is a Seal Point Siamese in this. In the original book, he was a fat, black, 20-pound black cat. In this version, he's a Seal Point Siamese, which is a favorite of my husband's. In fact, I think my in-laws had a cat that looks very similar, though Hazel's fat. Hazel's quite fat. This cat is slim. And I think there was two. There was male and female. But it very much focuses on the point of view of this cat. And you do see a lot of the characterization of the two men, or the three men, and the two women, and then you have the nosy neighbor. The nosy neighbor actually ends up being arrested. I think they assume she's a man. The cops see her, whether she's running around pretending to, they think she's running around pretending to be a man. And she's, of course, returned home very, very pissed off. And her husband, who has hearing issues and wears a hearing aid, frequently shuts it off so he doesn't have to listen to her anymore. She's very much an old hag. As is common, the nosy neighbor who's constantly spying on everybody. And so her husband doesn't want anything to do with her either. So the end of it is he's sneaking out the back door because she's pissed, because she's spent the night in jail and being assumed to be a man, which of course indicates how ugly she is. So now move on to the modern one. This is why it's very weird. It focuses on a little bit too much on Christina Ricci, who plays Patty Randall. She's very much a teenager. The outcast, which plays on a lot of what she's been doing in the past, films like Now and Then, Casper, Gold Diggers, which is a film that I've covered. Those all three she did in 1995, or the Addams Family films. So she's pretty much playing the socially awkward teenager in this, and her mother is very much the will not swear goody two-shoes, and dad's just kind of indulging it. So it very much focuses on that. There's no boyfriend involved. She's a social, necessarily a social pariah. She just doesn't really have anything to do with anybody. I think it's assuming that they moved to a small town and she hates it. So it's playing on that motif. This is actually the only film she, I think, ever did for Disney. So this is the only Disney film, and I think this was her last child role, as it was for, what can I not remember the name of her actress? Hayley Mills. So this was her last, both of them are their last young roles. Obviously, this is not the last role for Hayley, first Disney movie for Hayley Mills. She was very much doing Disney films prior to this. So then she basically, that's her character arc. And it's a kidnapping. So you see a kidnapping. You do not see who the kidnappers are in this version. As opposed to the first version, these are very much bad guys. They're bank robbers. They talk about killing her, talking about getting rid of the woman hostage and hiding bodies and eventually offing her. It's very much not played for laughs in an extent. It's still a Disney family movie, but these are gangsters and they're bad guys. So, and they are arrested obviously at the end. In the modern film, you do not know who the heck it is. They've kidnapped this woman. They don't have money. They're wanting a ransom from this rich family, and because they have kidnapped this woman, so you never see them. And then you have the cast of characters of the tiny town. You have the two very weird little cops, one of which kind of likes the butcher woman across the street. That's played by, what is the actress here? Moving back and forth here. Megan Cavanaugh. Her dearest name is Lou. So you have, she's constantly leaving meat, fresh meat for him because she's a butcher, and she carves things out of meat. It's a boring small town. That's what this is playing off of. You have the two competing car repair places that are across the street from each other that are constantly trying to outdo one another. You have the very sweet old couple who has the, I think it's a little cafe, and they're sweet and interesting, and it's very much playing on that cast of characters. And then the cops have no idea what's going on. You have Zeke, who's played by Dougie Doug, and he's considered a loser among the FBI. He's being put on by his boss. His boss is being played by, who's the boss in this one? George, I cannot pronounce his last name. Dizarka, or Dizarda. I can't pronounce that. I believe, if my memory serves, he was in another 90s film called Heavyweights. If I can see that really quickly, he has a good good thing here. He's done quite a bit of stuff. See if I can find, scrolling through that. Maybe I'm wrong. But again, he was in a bunch of stuff, but he plays the boss, and he's kind of, he does not like the bumbling young FBI agent. So he's constantly, basically, in this case, Dougie Doug's character is trying to prove himself, and nobody believes him. So he's kind of going off, trying to trace a cat. He's not really getting, they do have a let's monitor the cat thing, but he's still not taken seriously. So that, and then you have the weird relationship between him and Patty, where it's very much a friendship thing. But she's still very much a young teenager in this. So it's definitely a 90s teenager vibe, because again, it's 97. And you go through the thing where they're chasing the cats, and which is kind of similar to the other ones, and you have the weird cast of characters of the meat and the butcher and the weird bumbling police officers in a tiny quiet town, until they finally, Patty goes by herself. Basically, she figures it out somehow. I can't remember exactly how, that where the DC is going. And again, the other difference is the cat is different. The cat is more Persian in this. Hold this up for the second one. The cat is a, yeah, DC is a black and white fluffy creature in this film. Of course, they never show the bloody cat in these things. Yes, he's more of a Persian-looking cat. Sorry about that. Allergies. It's winter. I'm filming this in January of 2022. So it's a different type of cat. And so Patty finds them, is kidnapped and tied up by the kidnappers. You finally reveal them. It's a crazy little old couple who own the cafe. They are played by, I recognize the actors, Peter Boyle, and his wife is played by, I can scroll down, let's see, Rebecca Schull. So I believe what is she known for? I don't remember what the hell else she is known for. Wings, but that's really aging me. Let's see if she's going to be in anything. She was apparently in Suits. Little white-haired lady. She was in Frasier at one point in time, but she has a long, long career. I believe so does he. So, I think she might have. She was also in Roseanne. So, nonetheless, they are the kidnappers. You finally get who they're revealed. Zeke shows up. There's a scuffle. They still grab the kidnapped woman, who is played by, who is she in this film? Correct film here. Our kidnappee is who you barely ever see. Let's see if I can find who the heck it is. Of course, it's not showing me. But again, this is the only thing that's worth this film. It makes this film better because there's a giant car chase at the very end that's absolutely utterly hilarious, where the old couple with their the kidnappers are with this woman thrown in the back seat of the sports car. They are driving like crazy. Patty and Randall are chasing in a broken down old pickup truck. The cat is running around. There is a cat show going on. The two warring car repair shops eventually blow each other up because they're chasing around each other, and basically gasoline lights on fire, so it completely explodes. The revealing of the butcher and one of the cops get together, and they're hiding because, again, guns are flying, these cars are going like crazy. It's just a massive, very, very hilarious car chase at the end of this movie that makes up for the strangeness of the rest of it and all the teen angsting going on. So, yeah, there's just this huge, absolutely hilarious car chase. Eventually, the bad guys crash into, I think, their own shop. Or possibly the butcher shop. I think it's the butcher shop that they crash into. And they free the woman, and she's given back to her. The people who she's worked for, who would have paid her ransom. And Zeke is basically given commendation, despite, all sorts of things being destroyed, from cars to gas stations blowing up. Which, again, this car chase is absolutely utterly hilarious at the end of this film. It's worth it. And, of course, he gets a better job. He gets a better job. And Patty gets popular. Yeah, the whole teen angsty thing. It's what she played during that time. Christina Ricci has and I learned when I was looking up Gold Diggers, which is another film that I'm covering probably in a couple months. I've already filmed it. She's pretty much been working since she did Mermaids with Cher back in like the 80s, and has not stopped working since. She's literally had a project almost every year since she's been like 8. So even though it's not necessarily huge popular roles. This is like I think the 3rd film I've covered with her, because I did The Man Who Cried already. And then I'm doing this one, and then I have Gold Diggers coming up. I may do Now and Then, which is a favorite of mine. I did Casper as well. I think it was last year. I did Casper, trying to find slightly goofy family films. So, yeah, she's a favorite actress of mine. She was a mainstay in the 90s. So, but both of them are fun films. The modern one, yeah, is a little more corny, but it makes up for it in the final car chase. The final car chase just makes up for absolutely everything. It's probably the funniest thing I've ever seen. So it's goofy. I mean, take it for what it is. The older one is interesting to watch. It's a very good film, but again, it's very typical of that era for Disney. It was done under their Bona Vista label. It's old classic Disney. You can tell it was done in the 60s. You can see, particularly where they're in the car scenes and driving, you can tell they're not actually driving. Where they're on a lot and things are being gone past them, and the car is not actually moving. You can tell that very well. Some of the things I noticed when I did The Parent Trap, and then Freaky Friday. You can definitely tell these very much, these are the 1960s Disney films. They have the feel to them, and they're obviously filmed the same way. So why it's a decent and it's a good film, and the characters are hilarious, it does have that 1960 Disney feel to it. So for homeschoolers, it's good to look at the, if you're really looking at doing film comparisons, look at how the technology has changed. Let alone that darn cat, the modern one, had an extremely small budget. It's literally pretty much taken place in a tiny town. But the original That Darn Cat probably didn't have a huge budget either. Mind you, doing things on location was uncommon back then. Everything was done on a studio lot. Doing things on location was very, very rare, except for you were doing a huge film. This is a Disney family film. It was designed as a Disney family film. It was targeted at families and teenagers. So, and to be eventually shown on television. So that's the feel to it. So it is very interesting to look at, as was the modern version. This was not a big budget film. It's a comedy. They're both fun to watch. Again, you can only really get the modern one in this set, which is the reason you can't really get an individual. You can get this. You can probably watch them both on Amazon Prime, but again, I prefer to own my media if I really like them, so I did in fact buy these. These are mine. I actually could not find the modern one at my public library. So, and they are fun cat-centric films, with the cats are also a major character in this book. DC is very, very interesting. I wish I could get a hold of the book, but again, it's been out of print for some time. And the original, again, came out in 1965. So, again, if you're looking at comparisons, you can see the old classic Disney as compared to the 90s film. You can do that, of course, similarly when I did the comparison between both Parent Trap films and then Freaky Friday. Again, these are all done, the originals were all done classic Disney. And they all had very common characters. I mean, of the older films, Hayley Mills is in 2 of them. And then you have, and strangely enough, all of the main female characters in this actually went on to have decent careers. Hayley Mills sunk not because of stupidity on her part in the marriage issue. And then I think she was doing a lot of stuff in Britain. So, because she is English. So, and then obviously Christina Ricci has a long-standing career. And the actress who played in Freaky Friday, my brain is not working. This is why I film at night. I film at night. She's a well-known actress and director. I've already covered her before I did Contact. So Jodie Foster, there we go. Brain kicks in. She was, again, classic Disney. So early classic 60s and I believe 70s Disney. So they're good films to watch. Kind of back to these. They're fun. I know the modern one doesn't rank well, but it's still hilarious. If you watch it for what it is, it's fun. They're all children's. This is family films. The modern one is rated PG, and I doubt this one's going to be rated much more than that. The old-fashioned one is not rated. It's rated as approved, because again, it came out before the rating system existed. It's 1965, and it's Disney. So the Hays Code, I think the Hays Code was still in effect to an extent. So, and that's a whole different beast. You want to look up the Motion Picture Association's code that had to do with a lot of weird stuff going on. But it's commonly called the Hays Code. It's a morality code for movies. An interesting thing to go into at some point in time. But that was 65. And again, it's Disney. So this was before Disney became a complete corporate evil monster that it is. So that's it for this review. Again, I highly recommend both of these. I will link this in the description for Amazon. If you want to see if you can find it somewhere else, always do. Again, my library did not have the original, so I ended up buying this. So if you like what you see, be sure to check out the rest of the channel. I have a couple of the comparisons going on this month. I covered Sabrina. I'm not talking the Teenage Witch. I'm talking the older film, and then you did the modern one with Harrison Ford, and the older one, the main character, I think, was, oh, I can't remember. I think he's ugly. But the female character was Audrey Hepburn. So, but I can't pronounce the female actress in the modern one. I did Freaky Friday, as well as the Parent Trap, and then I did this one, which is That Darn Cat. So this is not the last. These are not the last Disney classics that I'm covering. I have Pollyanna that will be coming up next year in 2023. I don't know off the top of my head where I put it, but that's a book to film review. So I'm doing both of those individually. I'll probably do some more of the comparisons. I'm doing another one this year. I'm doing The Miracle on 34th Street, which isn't Disney, but it is an old classic with a modern one. So, I'm trying to think. I'll probably do more comparisons. I enjoy them. So, be sure to check out the rest of the channel. I also do regular film reviews and book reviews and secular homeschooling stuff, and various educational stuff as I add them. By the time you guys see this, it will be August of 2022. So my daughter will be about 3, so we may be getting into more homeschooling stuff. I'll post that as we come along. Otherwise, be sure to check out the rest of the channel if you want to know what else I've covered in 2022. I have a whole video on that. Otherwise, like and subscribe, leave a positive comment if you have them, and check out my library of stuff, and look forward to more. Thank you.